Hi everyone. In this session we're going to talk about tough love. Tough love is something that I believe that many family members and friends of addicts struggle with because they feel terrible when they don't help or when they say no. And so we're going to hear from some folks that had to deliver tough love and the results of tough love. I absolutely love this couple. They're friends of mine, and so I can't wait for you to hear their story and hear what it took to help him have a turnaround in his life. Tell me a little bit about when you guys met and how you got to, you started dating and all that.
I was with someone else at the time, and my boyfriend then needed a truck. So someone said, "Hey, go see Scott Hookrattle at Reichert." I said, "Okay." So I went in there, and that's the first time I had ever met him.
Okay. And did he sweep you off your feet?
Well, he really didn't have a chance to. He was in his sales mode. So, but I bought the truck.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, but that's when I had first met him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And what did you think when you saw her?
Well, actually, when she went walking back out through the showroom, I slid out from behind my desk and I looked at her. And another gentleman was sitting there and he's like, "What are you looking at?" I said, "I'm going to marry her."
Oh, is that what you said?
That's what I said.
Is that that?
Yeah. And then she kept calling me for stupid stuff.
Oh.
Like I didn't know.
Yeah, I did kinda like him.
I said, "You just push the." I forget what some of the things were.
Yeah,
but she
you're
would call
right.
me just for. I'm like, this is a weird call.
I did. I forgot about that.
That's
Yeah.
funny. That's funny.
So then at that point, I actively started pursuing her,
I gotcha. Okay.
and
Cool.
Because my best friend at the time was dating his best friend.
Ah.
So that's how.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So tell us your names.
Teresa.
Scott,
Now, were you struggling with addiction then too?
yes,
And how long have you struggled with addiction?
35 years.
Wow. Okay. And so I want to address some of the issues around tough love and things that maybe Teresa had to do in order to kind of help set things straight. So maybe go back, let's see, when did I do your wedding?
That would have been March 14th or March 11th, 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
And were you doing good then?
I was I wasn't drinking, I wasn't doing drugs. I was what they would call in recovery a dry drunk,
Okay.
which means I just wasn't drinking, but I wasn't sober.
Okay.
And by that I mean, the obsessive thinking and the irritability part of it, severe mood swings,
Yeah.
struggling really hard, just fighting it, refusing to drink, just
Yeah.
refusing it, but not knowing how to live.
Right. Right.
And so yeah, I was when you had married us, and then we left and went on our honeymoon.
The next day.
And everything was great. We got to a campground over in Wytheville, Virginia, to spend the night, and I'm like, we should celebrate.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, we can just go up to the little store here, and we'll get something to drink, and we can just toast and celebrate." And that kicked it back off again.
Yeah. Yeah. So from there, did it kind of spiral out of control?
There, in between there, I think you went back to the VA. There were so many back and forths.
So
Up
lots
and
of
down.
relapses and attempts to get help.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So
And your primary place to go get help was the VA?
originally, yeah.
Originally?
I had been to the VA 4 times.
Okay.
Twice before I met her, and then twice for treatment after I met her.
Mm-hmm.
But I had also been at another treatment facility prior to meeting her, or getting together with her, because I was at the VOA for 6 months as well.
Okay.
So yeah, it was always up and down, up and down.
So was there
And a
lots
lot of promises.
Yeah. So there was lots of times when you guys were having tension because in the marriage because you were up and down, and was there a lot of manipulation and lying and hiding?
Yes, and I always knew the minute he'd walk in the door, he thought he was hiding it.
Yeah.
But I could tell by his body language. that
The
he'd been
moonwalking.
drinking.
She's like,
Just
you've
his
been drinking.
But he thought, and that caused tension, and I was always worried, and I always felt like I was being a warden.
Yeah.
And-
Right. Right.
And
Did you do things like look at his phone and stuff and try to figure out where
not-
he'd been or?
yeah, when he got into the drug part, he'd fall asleep or pass out, and I'd look at his phone. I
Yeah.
could tell he didn't know how I knew how to do it, but I could tell where he'd been.
Oh.
That location thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I knew I had a little. I didn't let him know that. But
Right.
I felt like I had some control.
Yeah.
But
Okay. So
Yeah.
tell me the worst, like when it got to the worst point and you were disappearing. I think that happened around Christmas time.
Right after Christmas.
And what year?
2000 and
Chelsea got married.
yeah, so this is
14.
2018. So no, it would have been 2016.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
she just brought up a good point.
Okay.
So I had decided that I was going to quit drinking again when my daughter was going to get married and down in Nashville. And I wanted to give her a wedding,
I
a
remember
nice
that.
wedding.
I remember that.
And so I saved my money and I spent a lot of money on it. And I thought this is going to make everything great with us. And so I didn't drink for like 6 or 7 months. And then we went down there for the wedding. And it was nothing like what I thought it was going to be. And at the time I didn't know it was poor pity me. I was thinking, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
And so it was a big disappointment because it was nothing like what I thought it was going to be all kisses and hugs and I love you, Dad. And it was sit in the back. I don't want you to walk me down the aisle.
Yeah.
So it was, it was a really big disappointment for
Yeah.
me. And so that gave me the excuse when I came back, because that was in
2016.
December though, wasn't
Oh
it?
yes, it was the end of.
Yeah, and so I decided, well, the marriage went good. I gave her a happy marriage, and so I don't have a reason to not drink.
Yeah.
And I started drinking again.
Yeah.
And that really was kind of when it started to
Yeah.
really go south,
Yeah.
was that point.
So tell me, Teresa, what that season looked like as far as when he was home, when he wasn't home, when you knew where he was, when you didn't.
Well, it all started when he was working in Hebron. And when he was coming home later and telling me he was working late and had to go look at a motor home because someone was trading it, I said, okay. But then I called over there and I said, hey, is Scott there? And he said, no, he went home early. I said, really? I thought he was going to Chillicothe to look at a motor home. And they said, no. I said, okay. So that's when it all, and then I think that's when you didn't come home for a couple days.
Yeah.
And
So that's when the drug thing came in. He was going to wherever.
and you were getting involved in some pretty bad stuff then?
Mm-hmm.
What kinds of things did you do?
Well, like she said, I would, for me, I'd have 2 or 3 drinks, and then I would be gone. So it went from drinking to isolation at home drinking to then I would have a few drinks either before coming home or when I got home if she wasn't there, and then I'd end up in a crack house. And I'd be there for 3 days, 4 days. She would be calling, leaving me messages, and after about 2 days of that, you're like, well, I'm not going home. I don't want to go home and face that.
Yeah.
And so I stay out longer. And then I would end up coming back home, and I hadn't eaten for 3 or 4 days, haven't slept for 3 or 4 days,
In the same
hadn't
clothes.
showered, same clothes, stinking, unshaved, not hadn't brushed my teeth.
Yeah.
Several hundreds of dollars less
Yeah.
in my pocket. And I'd come home and she'd just look at me, and I'd take a shower and get cleaned up, and I'd go to bed, I'd get something to eat and go to bed, and I'd sleep for 12 hours.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I would be able to control it to where I could get up and go to work.
Yeah.
And then it got to be where I wasn't going to work either.
Yeah.
And then so after I'd get about 12 or 24 hours worth of sleep, I'd drink again because I was going through the shakes and withdrawal,
Yeah.
and right back out again. I did that every week.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Oh,
for
for-
2 or 3 months.
So what did you do? How did you handle that?
A lot of praying, and I had the recovery group that you had here at church that really helped.
Mm-hmm.
I exercised a lot. I just had ways of trying to think, oh, this is just, eventually he'll smarten up. And,
Yeah. You thought it was a phase or something?
Yeah, I think I kind of did at first.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just kept going downhill. Wouldn't come home for 4 or 5 days. And that's when I thought, this is really serious.
Yeah.
And I even drove to where, because on his phone,
Yeah. Yeah.
I even drove over to see where he was, just so I kind of knew it set in more,
Right.
seeing it,
Right.
the hotel he was in, and the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm like, okay, he's either going to die or I'm going to get hurt because of the people he's hanging with.
Right.
Because he told me they stole his wallet, knew where he lived,
Yeah.
his address. So that's when I thought, okay, I got to start thinking to myself.
Yeah. So what did you do? What kind of what conversation did you have with him about what you were going to do, or did you just take action?
No, I would, and then I'd just get mad because I could tell in his demeanor, it was like,
Yeah.
I was nagging or,
Yeah.
right, you're not going to leave me. That's the
And I
kind of
didn't
attitude.
think she would.
You didn't
Yeah.
think she would.
And that just
She
made me
did.
mad. It made me very angry, and I thought, okay, I don't want to say anything I'm going to regret. Because we would talk about forgiveness and our
Right.
recovery and reading scripture. And so I thought, I'm just keeping my mouth shut, and I'm just going to do it. So I packed up my stuff when he was on a binge, and I went to my parents.
Yeah.
And then that's when he really went, wow.
So how did you respond to that?
Well, honestly, I took it as an opportunity I'm free. Now I don't have anyone to answer to because I had lost my job again, the same company, twice that year after Christmas, and then I lost it again in September, which is right after she left me. So I had no job. She wasn't there to hold me accountable. There was no one to hold me accountable. And so I took it as an opportunity that I'm free. And that's really what I did. And that's when things really, really got bad. That's when, getting shot at, pistol whipped. I'd been run over by my own car, by somebody I let borrow my car, because you trade it for drugs.
Right. You
Yeah.
trade what you own as a
Uh-huh.
resource for a little while. So people were probably running drugs in your car,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's how you got the drugs you wanted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And and then that went on for a while, and I think I even had contacted you a couple of times.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I think your last text message or your last voicemail to me was kind of stern. I'm like, so I'm done with Pastor Brian now too,
Who's
because
next?
he's not listening to me.
No,
He don't
I'm feeling
care.
sorry
Nobody
for you.
cares. You know?
Nobody cares.
And it went really downhill quickly, and that's when I actually had taken a razor knife to my arm
Yeah.
and didn't know that I did it. And when I woke up the next morning, I had blood all over me, blood all over in the sink and in the bathroom. And I'm like, what happened? And I looked, and there was a knife on the sink with blood all over it. And I'm like, okay. Well, she had come over
To
and
get close. Sometimes I would go just to check.
Yeah,
right.
I was worried.
Yeah,
And
I
I
was
was-
basically contemplating suicide. That's where I
Yeah.
was at. I was
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would come over and then I saw that blood and I asked him when he called me 3 days later or whatever, and he said he didn't remember.
Yeah.
And then there were burns on the counter from crack pipes, and
Yeah.
because he'd started smoking at home because I wasn't there.
Right.
So, you
So-
didn't really have to keep going to the hood.
Right.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
the neighbors,
Oh, yeah.
You know,
He'd hang out in
they-
he'd hang out in the garage.
one of my I would literally hide under my car, laying underneath it
In your own garage?
in my own
Paranoid.
garage, paranoid.
Oh.
And I'd put stuff on the windows, and then I would hear things.
Well, you were doing meth?
Crack.
Crack does the same thing as meth?
I don't know. I've never done meth
Wow. Okay.
yet.
No.
Hey!
Well, and that's what you really, I hear people say, well, at least I never did that.
Right.
And in
Well, you're
in
just
the
saying
meetings,
that-
we talk about,
Yeah.
Because
Because you're saying
I would have.
because you're not invincible. You can
No.
still fall.
And
And
I
that's
still
true
can,
of all
but
of us.
if I had not
Right.
gotten my life turned back around, I would have done meth. I tried to do heroin. The guy
Yeah.
wouldn't let me do it.
Hmm.
He told me, he said, you've never done this? I said,
This was a drug dealer.
he's like, I'm not. Oh, yeah. He's like, I'm not going to give this to you. He said, you're not getting it for the first time from me.
Wow. That
I
was-
had a drug dealer drive me to rehab.
Yeah. That's a whole
I think I
nother-
remember that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what was the turning point where you started to rebound and come back?
I think the arm deal and the loneliness was setting in because I didn't want to come home, but I didn't want to be there either because I knew I was going to die out there.
Yeah.
I'd come close very
You said you were going to
Often.
hang yourself. Remember you said you
yeah,
were trying to-
I had already figured out how I was going to hang myself in the garage. And there was a lot involved in this. There was a lot of loneliness and shame and regret and remorse and self-pity.
Sure.
And, a lot of that stuff. And, I think, the last time she came over, I looked at her, and that look that she has in her eyes for me wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a look of helplessness
Mhm.
and fear and maybe regret
Yeah.
of being with me.
Yeah.
And that really started crushing me emotionally.
Mhm.
And then no one would call me. Nobody would take my call. Nobody would call me back. Nobody wanted to come see me. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with me. And the desperation and loneliness part of it started to really take its toll on me. And I talk about this in the meetings when I do my lead. It was about 1:30 in the morning, and I was sitting out in my driveway, and I was looking up at the stars, and the feeling of abandonment, which I had felt many years earlier when I was taken away from my family, and I spent 3.5 years in orphanages and foster homes. So that same feeling had wrapped around me. And I got down and I started praying, and I asked God, I said, God, I said, everybody has left me. I have never felt this lonely in my life. Have you left me too? And I prayed. Well, the next day, the guy that's my sponsor now, I called him. I said, Goody, I need help. And his nickname's Goody.
Yeah.
And he said, I know you do. And he had
We'd been talking.
we had known him
too.
through, because I had experimented with going to the meetings and finding out how many of these people have a bunch of problems.
Yeah.
I don't know
That's
what
what he'd say.
don't they have
Man,
anything
Teresa,
better to
these
do
people
than
have
be here? And so he told me, he said, I'm going to call Shepherd Hill and I'm going to see if I can get you in there. I said, okay. So, and I kept telling her I'm going to do this, do that, and I never did it, but I believed it when I said it. Every time
Yeah.
I told her, I'm never going to do this again, I promise. I meant it. I really did. But I was sick, and I was spiritually broken. And that's where that loneliness, the separation, because I knew what it felt like to be able to talk and pray to God. I knew what it was like to have her support me, but I didn't have any of that anymore. And
I want to ask you a real important question. Do you think it was necessary to lose all that
yes,
to regain your? Yeah.
if she would have stayed with me, I think I would have died. In fact, I'm pretty sure that I would have, because it was getting to the point where I was kind of being hunted down out there, because they knew I had a bunch of money
Oh.
and on me when I would go out.
Yeah.
And the comment had been made, you're going to die out here. And so if she wouldn't have left me, I would have kept on going, thinking that,
Kept playing the game.
yeah. But with all of that happening, it forced me into thinking
Yeah.
and realizing. And so I ended up, and here's the funny part, and I don't know how much time we have here. So Goody calls me and he says, call Shepherd Hill. I talked to the lady there, and you need to call her. I'm like, okay, so I call her. This is Scott Hook Rattle, and she said, yes, I just talked with Goody. Can you be here Monday morning for intake? And I said, I can be there. She said, can you make it through the weekend by yourself? I said, no problem. It wasn't an hour later, I'm looking at my watch, and I'm like, okay, well, this is my last weekend.
Oh no.
And I'll just go and I'll be back tonight.
Yeah.
Well, this was on a Friday. Monday morning at 6:30ish, something came over me, and it said, Scott, Goody is going to meet you at your house and take you to Shepherd Hill. You need to go. It's over. It's time for you to get out of here. So I walked out into the kitchen where my drug dealer's house was, and they're sitting there, and I said, I'm done. And they said, well, what do you mean you're done? I said, I'm done. I'm done. I'm never coming back here. I'm done. This is it. And they both looked at me, and one of them put his head in his hands, and he said, finally, you need to get out of here. You need some
Wow.
help.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? You don't belong here. You need to get out of here. You need to go home to your family. You need some help. And don't come back here again. Because if you do, they're going to kill you.
Wow.